begin by speaking in the language, which is not my norm. But since I have to introduce myself first, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to start my presentation. So I'm Sonia from Barbados. I'm head of chemistry at the Barbados Community College, revealing that I'm really a chemist, but I've been working in the area of natural products. And once doing that, you quickly realize that you're going to delve into the importance of the sources of those natural products, plants, and obviously then the link to people. And that has been reinforced for me on my introduction to this society and becoming so involved. So here we go. Emissary, that obviously is not Barbadian, but it is part of the Ibibio language. The Ibibio people originated in Central Africa and migrated to Nigeria, southeastern Nigeria. According to our historical documents, the Ibibio people made up a significant percentage of the population that was extracted from their homeland and supplanted to Barbados. So I'm going to take you on an ethnobotanical journey for me, which will end up, of course, in some chemistry. But I think before I do that, I want to introduce you a bit to Barbados. So I'm really looking at the resilience of traditional knowledge within the African population brought to the island. And I always have to indicate that Barbados is not Jamaica. Because that's always the landmark that is used. So if you say you're from Barbados, they'll ask, is that anywhere near to Jamaica? So we are close to Jamaica, but we are not Jamaica. We're lying most easterly in the Caribbean archipelago, and you can see the relevance to the north coast of Africa. And though we could draw a line in terms of our visual, when the ships came across, they really docked on the western side. You will see that as we continue. So Barbados, tropical and known for sand, sea, and sun, as we can see in that image. The dense flora that we're seeing here is not an accurate reflection of the density that we have or tree cover, but there's been a lot of replanting because we are heavily into tourism as our major economic activity. We do have some of our African traditions that are still alive. This is our national dish. It is called the cuckoo and the flying fish, because the fish actually do fly. And fish is one of our major dietary components, and the cuckoo is made from cornmeal. We're densely populated and very developed. We can say that it's a residual benefit, if we want to look at it that way, from the years of British occupation. We were able to build on that. We are very flat, and that led to easy removal of our plant and tree cover. This is one of our oldest buildings. This is our Parliament building, and it apparently was built say middle 1600s through to the 1700s, and one of the oldest cities in the Caribbean. And just a few years ago, we were given World Heritage status. So the trip across from Africa led to 4.5 million Africans being transferred to the West Indies, and according to historical documents, approximately 400,000 were shipped to Barbados. I thought I would include this just to give you an idea of what the island looks like and topography. As I said, we're really flat. We're made mainly of limestone, although we've got some other composition more on the eastern side of the island. And we suffer significant loss, as I mentioned before, of our tree cover, and it's estimated by one of our botanists, Harrington, that we've got about 2% of original tree cover, and it's now isolated in one wooded area, which is called Turner's Hall Woods. He has also estimated that currently we have about 700 species of flowering plants. At the time of his estimation, we had 2 endemics, but now one of those, there's great concern about one of those because he does an annual search for that species and recently has not been able to locate it. This is an interesting older map that I came across. The highlights here include, these are the locations of the plantations that cropped up to deal with sugarcane, and that clearing of our tree cover was so that the sugarcane could be that main industry. And also what I found interesting about this is at the top they thought it important as part of a map to show that they were in control of the African extracted and supplanted population, but I look at it more as resilience because we always want to be free, and that's an indication there. What else do you think was interesting about that? I think we can continue. Here we have an indication of, it says here, slaves of Barbados. And my reason for this slide is to show the continuation of the West African style of housing. And we still have one of these, which is now a tourist attraction. We've got more than one, but many of them have suffered at the hands of residential development. So again, looking to make that connection between Barbados heritage in terms of using plants for medicine and the trip across from Africa. And here we have a piece of archaeological evidence where we've got who's considered to be a divine healer being sadly unearthed, but showing evidence, evidence of the tradition, which includes not only the use of plants, but other artifacts as well. This piece of information on the screen was an extract from a personal communication of Sir Hans Sloane, who was thought to be one of the first naturalists who worked on Caribbean flora. And in addition to working on the flora, obviously we must look at the relationship between the plants and the people. And he was able to document that he witnessed, or he was able to get information of West African tradition. In addition, this is again information extracted from historical documents, where we see here the rum and rum mixtures being used, similar to our bitter tasting yesterday. And however, the documentation does support the fact that plant medicine was showing up to be the main system in developing a primary health care. So going through the historical documents, what did I find? I found that there were 60 plants listed as being important for various uses, which we'll see shortly. And the habitat from which we were sourcing these medications during that time, mainly herbs, shrubs, and trees. Common usage, as you would expect based on the harsh conditions of living, were for vulnerary, that is wound healing, as a purgative by poor diets and exposure holds. in looking at this data and trying to extract the importance in relation to families, I found that there were two that stood out in terms of the repeated mention of a plant from the family, and that those two were the Euphorbiaceae and the Fabaceae. This is the list of plants here from the Euphorbiaceae, and you can see the applications as we would expect, very topical mainly. And also what stands out is we have a repeat of one particular genus, but now the C. prostrata, serpens, and herter are thought to be sub to the broader genus of Euphorbia. What's special about these plants? I looked for maybe signs of recognition in terms of these plants being selected for usage, but they're variable in terms of some are herbs, some are small trees, and there's even a very large tree involved. But what is common about them is that they all yield a latex. So this one yields a milky latex. These two, which are quite similar, also yield a milky latex. Croton flavans, this is a shrub, it's called seaside sage. This also yields a latex, but it's yellow and clear. Ricinus communis, or castor oil, also yields a milky latex, but it's a shrub. Jatropha curcus is a small tree, but this yields a milky or at times reddish latex. And the Sapium hickmani, this is a tree to 20 meters tall. So what is it that drove the Africans who were brought over to select this particular family of plants and from these various habitats? Also to be noted is that research suggests that the latex from these species can be very toxic, including this one here, which is caustic and can cause blindness. So I'm arguing that if they were willing to risk the side effects of using these lateces, that there must have been some strong belief or knowledge in terms of the use of the plants in the various manners. Again, looking for, I don't think we have to really look for data to imagine that the peoples were transplanted with their traditional knowledge, but it's always good to find documentation. So I think we probably all know of Tinde, her work, which she was able to use the residual language within the Surinamese Africans and see the comparison in terms of the language they used for a particular plant species. And I extracted a few as related to the Euphorbiaceae family, and I have been a bit pestering my African colleague from Benin, asking her about the pronunciation so that I would not sound too strange. But what I like here is Ricinus communis in terms of the similarity of the language used to identify the plant. And we notice that this is from Benin as well. So Mio and Neo Trio, I think that's close enough. And that goes through, if you go through her list. We'll see some that are closer and some where the difference is a little significant. And it may apply to, if not the exact plant, one belonging to the same genus. So again, I'm looking for that link between the two land masses, and again, from historical documents, we see that apparently in that 400,000 who were transported forcibly to Barbados came from Ghana and Nigeria, but those listed groups of peoples, the Idibio coming from, as I said before, southeastern Nigeria. And we see, in terms of the rate of extraction, that in the mid-1600s, repeat in terms of the number brought over. And there was a gradual decline, and this, of course, was due to increasing resistance and advocacy, but also because a Creole population was being developed on the island. So, beginning to get excited in terms of seeing that correlation. So I went to publications based on what's happening in Ghana, and I saw that there is a very rich tradition here, and it is obvious that that tradition would have come over. Interestingly, in terms of looking for the family or families which are of significance in their practice, what it shows is here that Euphorbiaceae is more relied on in terms of providing therapeutic value than Euphorbiaceae. I then went to Nigeria. I'm just giving you a snapshot of what I found. And then I found 3 references in Nigeria which showed Euphorbiaceae to be showing up as significant in their ethnomedicinal practice. So that's one. And then here's another one where, interestingly, in this one, there was a 43% in common in terms of the usage within this particular sampling and what I got from my historical documents. And here's another case where there are 2 particular species which were used pre-1834 repeatedly and are still being used based on the sampling from this population. So what is the real value of this resource that was extracted from Africa? And I am claiming, of course, its traditional knowledge, the value of traditional knowledge. And this traditional knowledge based on my study here is in terms of the properties of that latex that is being produced by the family of plants and its veracity in terms of being used topically for healing of wounds. Generally, latex can have 2 functionalities, either mechanical or chemical. Mechanical application is thought to be that where the plants produce that latex which hardens quickly and seals wounds. And there's another type of latex where it's more aqueous-based, if you wish, and it doesn't harden as fast, allowing the natural agents to be active in the particular area of application. And the Euphorbiaceae latex is found to have that latter feature. Chemical analysis shows that the secondary metabolites are varied, and the bioactivity of those metabolites are also varied. And most importantly for me here is the finding that they've all got a collection of proteases. What are these proteases? Proteases are known to help in terms of wound healing in 2 ways, 2 main ways. One is to promote debriding around the wound, that's getting rid of old tissue, and the other way is in promoting the formation of a matrix, which will allow the wound to heal and close. And I made it in 12 minutes, or the stop sign is up. These 2 images are not directly relevant to the content, but I thought that they were symbolic of resilience as well, though this is around 1836 when the slavery should have been abolished by then, but we know that it took long to be enacted. And so Songo, that is also Iberian.